In the papers today, you see that unfortunate story about those who have been killed in Adamawa, in Mubi, we understand. Now, we will check now with Ahmed Sadio, who is the head of press with the government in Adamawa State, to see, bring us up to speed what really is going on there today. Morning, Mr. Sadio. Different accounts of different things happening. All right, I understand we don't have him on the phone yet, but let's go back and then continue our focus on the security matter. Etim Eyo joins us now. He's the coordinator, Nigeria Nostalgia Group. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, at the moment, yes, all those intelligence from countries, international community, at the moment, we believe are being supplied to security agencies here, cooperating in terms of intelligence. But the troops, you have some troops reported in Chad, that's U.S. forces. And then the protests continue in the country about the missing girls, while all shades of stories, videos, reports online concerning where the girls are, and all of this just going around in circles. What do you think about all of this now? Are we inching closer in terms of what we're doing and how we're doing them?
I think it's very difficult to tell because one of the things that is very obvious in the whole of the affair that has been, as it has rolled out, is really the shortage of information, which I think the Nigerian people have received concerning, what the government is doing, concerning where the girls may be, and that sort of thing. So it's a very, very difficult, difficult terrain to navigate because nobody knows what the accurate information is. Do you know what the government is doing? Do you not know what the government is doing? Where are we in the process? How far? That information is not communicated to Nigerian people. So we hear about, the Americans are here, the British are helping, the French are doing this, and there are all these efforts are being coordinated. But I think that there is still what's missing is really a composite story or a logical process which has been that has been effectively communicated to the people, so that we can follow along with what the government is doing. The government can also depend on the people for information intelligence, which I think is a critical part of trying to discover, how to discover where the girls are, how to deal with this problem. So these are all things which I think are
security challenge and how to sort them out. And some of these towns, some of these cities, just kind of quiet, and a bomb explosion in a place like Koma, if it happens, for instance, would be completely strange. That's a city where it wasn't long ago that they knew how to, dress like every other person out there, because we've been there, actually. Okay. But looking at some of these now, in terms of what we're doing to get these girls out, and there will be all sorts of comments, the protests continue, but how do you suggest, for instance, do they need to improve their communication with us in terms of what they're doing, how they're going about it? How much do we need to know?
Well, I think there's just to answer that last question first, is that, there is a way to communicate which, you can provide high-level information in a logical fashion, which helps to, put, places for people who are, who can help, who may be, following your people. We need people to follow along with this process that the government is doing. Now, is even just to prevent something like a situation which we have now, where there's a lot of misinformation, where you hear one information here today, it conflicts with information you get tomorrow, that sort of thing. I mean, if you look at the basic piece of information relating to this whole incident, is the number of girls that are missing, for example. I mean, how many times do you hear varying numbers? There are varying numbers all over the place. So there isn't one figure. So nobody knows. So nobody knows what the actual figure is. This is the kind of thing that the government really should be definite about and say, we know how many girls are missing. We know them by face. We know them by name. And we know, and these are their parents, or and that kind of information really helps to put things in perspective. Then you're beginning to put a framework on on how to communicate this thing to the public.
I think even in addition to that, with the amount we've seen so far that have actually escaped on their own,
right.
we should be able to know how many are left in the dungeon of Boko Haram.
Precisely.
So with the information center which the government set up, would you say they have been able to bridge that gap for some kind of depth of information?
Yeah, I don't want to disparage the government in this conversation, because obviously this, nobody's dealt with this terrorism situation of this scale before. So of course the good government is learning how to deal with the problem, but also there is a need for a little bit more precision. I haven't heard very much from the information center. I'm not. The only thing I've heard is that it was going to be created, which is something which was done on television, and I think that the presidential spokesperson had made.
What do you expect from a center like that, for instance?
Well,
in terms of the operations, how they should
my expectation really would be that on a daily basis there is a progress report, which is on a daily basis, because these are children of citizens of this country. These people, these children, are Nigeria's highest value asset, if you like. This is the greatest thing that we have. People are more important. I always say people are more important than oil. If there's a barrel of oil missing, will you not try to find it? We have to find the children. We have to know. So on a daily basis, we must have a progress report in terms of, okay, where are you today? What were the objectives for the day? Did we meet those objectives? Did we find anything, or we didn't find anything? So people know. I mean, even it's not bad to have a failure. I think that probably the government tries not to communicate its failures, but it's not finding anything or not making any progress. It's not necessarily a failure, but you can, because you're looking for something. So you're looking here and you're looking there, and you're making making certain moves. This morning, I think I read in some newspaper somewhere about a certain negotiator, which is who's been negotiating on behalf of the government, or even if it's not called if you don't want to call it negotiating, you're calling it something else. Fine. There's someone who's interfacing with perhaps people from the members of Boko Haram or that nature. This is information that I haven't heard anything about till today.
Would you say that Boko Haram is getting rather anxious? Because right now we're saying that over here and there's been a release of another video with those girls wearing their school uniforms this time around and saying that they're suffering and they're hungry. One of them is even reported to have a twisted, is it ankle or wrist now, with a twisted joint somewhere. Right. And would you say, how would you interpret that on the part of Boko Haram?
I think the whole idea of getting involved with the videos is really allowing Boko Haram to run the process, if you like. It's okay if they release a video, you can watch it and you can see what it is that they're doing. But this should not interfere with your objective or your goal of actually retrieving the girls. I think them releasing a video and with this kind of information is neither here nor there.
Because
they're getting you into a position where they're trying to negotiate with you.
The first video we had seen, the girls were reportedly fine. Some of them claimed that they had changed their religion and they were at peace. A host of people said they looked well fed and they were okay. Yeah. And there were questions as to how they got so many clothes, to clothe them at the same time. And in contrast with this new video where they seem to be pleading, with the government to come to their aid and, they're not exactly happy where they are. What message do you get from that?
It's very difficult to tell. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to tell, to say categorically what exactly is on the mind of Boko Haram, why they're doing this, or why they're particularly. Personally, I have to assume that if you come into our country and you take 300 girls away, I'm going to assume that you're not treating them well. I'm going to assume that they're in danger. I'm going to assume that I'm going to assume the worst, because that act alone doesn't suggest someone who's trying to look after or pacify or work with you. Mm-hmm. You don't take children away and then you expect it. So this is, I think it is you know, and I say this from, you know, from a very layman's point of view, you know, I think it's a mistake to begin to try to work with an organization like Boko Haram. It's a terrorist organization.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is, do you think that there's a particular site they're targeting? Because the first video was released in the open. The second one has only been viewed by a select the section of the media, so to speak. Do you think that there is something that they are working on in our psyche? Because it's the psyche of laymen, ultimately, whom they could be trying to work.
Absolutely. I think that they're going to use anything that is to their advantage. And they're obviously using technology, they're uploading videos. I mean, this is, these people are not, they're not vagabonds. These people they clearly know what they're doing. They're doing this for a purpose.
Is there anything we need to be on the watch out for as laymen?
I think that what we need is we need to understand what our government is doing. That's what we need to do. We need to understand what position our government is in, and we need to be able to support the government if it needs our help. But we can't do that unless, you know, the government is communicating open with information to its people. Because otherwise what happens is that people get a little bit anxious. Some people are going to say, okay, this is fine. And some people are going to say, well, no, we're going, you know, let's negotiate, let's do anything. Because what happens is that people become desperate when they don't know what options they have.